them both online and at the new Department of Indigent Services lovely offices that I had not had a chance to be at yet, so thank you. All right, we'll call the meeting to order and we'll go through a roll call.
Sure. Do you want to handle the roll call, Casey, or I can handle it?
I got it.
All right,
Thanks.
Okay, just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. Kate Thomas.
I'm here.
Joni Eastley. Chris June Kellyani.
Here.
Jeff Wells.
Here.
Susan Bush.
Here.
Angela Cook. Lorena Dellinger. Joe Krim. Allison Jaffe. Dave Mendola.
Here.
Jared Hickman. Justice William Maupin. David Figler.
I'm here.
Okay.
All right, I can see on the screen, I can see Lorena's name. Lorena, can you confirm whether or not you're here with us?
I see her.
And I can also see,
Joni?
yeah, I think that's Joni's number. Joni, are you here? You may need to unmute yourself if you haven't already. Hopefully someone
or they may be muted by Casey.
Hosting can prompt them to.
Sorry, I apologize. I was muted. I apologize. It's Eastley. I'm here.
Hi, Joni.
Hi, Joni.
Hi.
To my count, that's 7, so we have a quorum.
All right. Thank you, Director Handy. All right. We'll first go to public comments. If we've got any members of the public that would like to comment on today's meeting.
And then just for open meeting law purposes, if you are listening in and want to know how to join by phone to make public comment, it is 669-900-6833. The meeting ID is 898-581-13598, and the passcode is 254904. Or if you are in the Zoom app, you can raise your hand if you'd like to.
Thanks, Mama. All right, and we'll get to introduce you here in a minute for those that are wondering. I'm stalking. Is there anyone here for public comment? Give it just a second. Okay. Well, we'll move on. There's another opportunity at the end of the meeting should someone wish to speak. So we'll move on to item number 3, which is election of the board chair. This is a potential action item. Yes, Mr. Wells.
So I'm going to nominate Kate to be our chair.
Unless there's anyone else that would be interested in the nomination. I feel like I should say speak now or forever hold your peace.
I second that. This is Chris, I'll second. Oh, Dave got me first.
Dave. I was hoping you'd volunteer. Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor on the board, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, well, since I am vice chair currently, that then opens up the vice chair position. Do you want, it says board chair, do we want to?
Yeah, I think we should elect the vice chair as well, since your position just became vacant.
My
by
position
operation.
is vacated.
I wonder if Dave wants it again.
I would be happy to nominate Mr. Mendiola if he would be so interested in serving as vice chair. He looks really convinced that the circle.
I'm happy to.
Do I have a second?
Sure, I second it.
Seconded by Mr. Wells. All right, if there's no public comment on that item, we can go ahead and all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, Director Handy, you have your chair and vice chair for the next year? Your term?
Yes, for the next year.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
And congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yes. All right, well, we'll move right into item number 5. And there are a series of items that are there, and this is for discussion. So I'll turn it over to you to introduce Homa.
Sure, yeah, we can start with item 5, and then we can go back to 4 maybe afterwards to approve the minutes.
Oh,
if you
sorry,
want.
I
No, it's
skipped right
fine.
over that. We can go, let's do that really quick.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm so excited to be chair that I'm just cruising forward. So we're looking at approving the February 6th, 2025 board minutes. Mr. Mendiola, did you have any comment?
Yeah, I'll be abstaining. I was not present.
That's good. Are there any comments on that item? Do you have any suggested changes or items to note? Okay,
I'll move adoption.
great. I have a motion to move adoption of the board minutes for February 6th. Do I have a second? I'll second. If there's no public comment on the item, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor of the minutes from February 6th, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposition? Great, now we'll go to number 5. Dr. Handy, my apologies.
No worries, of course, thank you. So this is just gonna be a few updates about the department and a little bit about the board. So first I'd like to introduce Homa, who's our new deputy director. Do you wanna tell the board and everyone listening a little bit about yourself?
Oh, good afternoon, Homa Sayar. For the record, I started in early May as, it's funny, if you look at the statute, I'm other deputy. There's deputy, which is Brenda, and I'm other deputy. And so I came over I used to be general counsel at state purchasing. Before that, I was a senior deputy attorney general representing various agencies and purchasing, risk management, IT, and then before that was counsel for Nevada State Medicaid. And prior to being the AG's office, I was the state elder and disability rights attorney appointed by Governor Sandoval. And before that, I was in private practice in Las Vegas, doing all various sundry things you do when you're a solo, which is all cases. So happy to be here. I'm most excited about kind of, finding out the lay of the land and seeing what we can do to, get something more robust, maybe about how invoicing is working, how tracking is working, bring some of the purchasing procurement knowledge to the table so that we can improve the efficiency of what all, so that our attorneys can focus on what they do best versus some of the administrative things that are challenges. So, and then obviously the oversight and stuff like that. So I'm excited to be here and definitely open door if anyone's listening and, has stuff they want to talk about or things that I should be looking at, more than happy to give assistance.
Great, thank you. We also have a new location. We're in 751 Basque Way here in Carson City. Much larger space than our last space. We actually have room for all of our employees to fit in this building. Unlike the last building, if you managed to visit, there wasn't a lot of room to breathe or walk around or get cool air in some spaces. So this is a major improvement. I'd like to thank the people at State Leasing who helped us find this place. And this is a really good find. I think we're all really happy with it. This also has this nice conference room you can see us in. We could probably fit a dozen people in here uncomfortably. I think we can fit 8 pretty comfortably though. So it's a really good space. Hopefully we'll be able to do things like training and stuff in here as well if we need to, small groups, or have the ability to have multiple presenters or panelists to do recorded trainings.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Mendiola.
Yes, I just want to commend Peter and staff on the perfect street name. Couldn't be better.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I love that. I'm sure that was one of the driving factors.
It was one of the main factors, yeah. Return of the staff from the legislature, as you were probably updated in the last meeting back in February. Bette and Ashley went to work with the state legislature for over 6 months, it seems like, and we're really happy to have them back on staff. We've had a lot of great help from temporary employees, Rachel, Casey, and Ashlyn. We wouldn't have been able to do this without them, so really appreciate their work over the last 6 months. And we wish we could keep everybody because having all the staff helps so much, but we really couldn't have done it without them. So, and we're also really glad to have Bette and Ashley back. Create some little bit of overlap so we can get some continuity of service so we don't have any disruptions. And so far, I think things have been going really well having them back too. So if you had any issues with not issues, I won't frame it that way. If you have any ongoing matters that you're dealing with, Casey or Rachel or Ashlyn, you may be better suited just to reach out to the DIDS inbox directly, and then we can route any issues to the person they should go to now, whether that's Ben or Ashley or one of us or somebody else. I guess I covered D there on accident too.
Yeah.
Look at me. So E, new forms, guidelines, policies, and procedures. We talked back in February about the new guidelines we were developing. We did release the billing guidelines for attorneys. We're working on doing some redevelopment of those. Of course, there's always troubleshooting anytime you roll out a new project, and we've been working with some of our attorney partners to revisit those. We've just released new forms. Hopefully, there are more forms than there were before, but hopefully they are more succinct so that we know immediately when something comes in what it's for, because we have to control so many different buckets of money to pay things out. So there's going to be a form for post-conviction payments, for prison payments, for normal attorney's fees payments. And while it's kind of a pain probably in the beginning to get used to the new system for attorneys, it should make things easier and hopefully make the evaluation and payment turnaround much faster than it has been in the past. We're also going to be redeveloping our policies and procedures internally. So because this is a really new agency, we started in 2019, we borrowed a lot of our internal policies and procedures. The NSPD came over from under DHHS from previously being its own agency. So there's a lot of overlapping policies and procedures. We're going to try and reconcile all those, hopefully make things more efficient. Hopefully if we have, changes in staff where we have to get temporary employees or something, we'll have a very well-defined written set of procedures, so there will be some less loss of institutional knowledge, less loss of time, so that we can keep plowing forward in an efficient way, making sure that attorneys are getting paid and clients are being represented.
Good.
I think that's it for my update for now. Unless anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board? This is not an action item, so if not, we'll move on to item number 6, which is also non-action, and that's the review of the new legislation. We've got SB 407 and AB 541, which are in the packet.
Yes, they are. SB 407, both of these were signed by the governor. So they did become effective, well, they will become effective July 1st. 407 made some modifications to the executive director and the state public defender. You'll likely remember that in the last meeting. And since then, the monitor indicated in her report that there was an issue with the independence of the executive director of the department and the ability to hire the state public defender within the agency. So those are changes that were made. Now the executive director appoints the state public defender, and the state public defender may be reappointed to serve multiple terms, since it is a term appointment that's been made clear in the statute. It also allows that filling those roles might be done by somebody who would be eligible for licensure by the State Bar of Nevada. So should those roles become vacant, either the board or the executive director can reach out to like a nationwide search. So for attorneys who are licensed in other jurisdictions that might come, who might be very well qualified candidates, will be eligible for the position in the future. Yeah. 541 is more of an administrative and ministerial one. That basically took the funding from the NSPD that was used to pay for post-conviction cases, moved it from an NSPD account to the Department of Indigent Defense Services account. We've really been managing that account since about 2023, so it made sense to make that change structurally. And it also should provide the NSPD a little bit extra time to not have to do as much administrative work and be able to focus a little more time working with their clients. And again, I'm happy to answer questions about either one of those.
Are there any questions from the board on the legislation that was passed during this past session?
This is Chris. Could you just restate, Peter, what did they change in the very first comment that you made regarding the executive director? You can hire now the public defender?
That's correct. So it used to be the governor who appointed the state public defender,
correct.
And now it's an appointment made by the director of the department.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Peter, it's Joni in Tonopah. I'm just curious, was there any pushback on either one of those bills?
Not that I'm aware of. 407 originally actually started out as the bill from the interim session that would have created the post-conviction solicitor in the office and an alternate public defender. That ended up being modified to become what is in here as 407. There was I don't remember which chamber it was, there was a committee that passed it out along party lines initially. But when I moved to the other chamber, that was resolved and there weren't any issues across party lines.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joni. Good
Sure.
question. Any other questions from the board? This is a non-action item, so we won't be taking public comment. Item number 7 is talking about the budget, and this is action. So we'll talk about our current budget and some reports and reimbursement.
Yes, so several things. If we start with A, I guess, I'll talk about the current state of the budget for the department and the NSPD. Those are budget accounts 1008 and 1499. The current state of the budgets are healthy. We have a couple of work programs in process to make sure we're getting those for this year. The leftover funding that's in the AB 518 kind of set aside behind IFC so that we can make sure we reimburse all the counties in this fiscal year. We have a request of about $5 million. That's going to be money added to the $3.5 million we already have in our budget accounts to make those reimbursement payments. We also have some funding being requested. Really, I think it's gonna be a transfer of accounts, so kind of a minor administrative thing to make sure we can pay for all of our temporary employees out of the right budget accounts. It's a lot of reconciliation that happens. For those of you who've done county work or fiscal work, you kind of understand, I think, how that goes. I don't think there's any action required for the current state of the budgets. Can I move on to item B? Thank you. So moving to item B, that's the overview of the budgets that are available for fiscal year 26 and 27. The legislative approved budgets just became available to me. I haven't had a chance to actually go through that, print those, upload them. They're substantially the same as the GovRec budget, which are the ones that were posted to the website and are included in binders if you made it here in person. Those are in tab 4, I believe. Essentially, there's been major changes to the department's budget. We requested from 518 funds for things like training, for oversight, and for providing some technological resources to attorneys. All of the funding that we requested in fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25 has been carried over and included in our base budget for 26 and 27. So that's nearly $1 million for providing oversight through our oversight outreach advisors. I think it's almost $200,000 for training and resources, another $99,000 I think it ended up being for providing justice techs to attorneys who have contracts and working public defender firms. So significant amounts changed there. I think we also had included just over $6 million per year in the base budget for reimbursing the counties. I think we all recognize that the amount that was in the budget wasn't enough to pay it. And so a large increase was made there to make sure we have at least that base budget to reimburse the counties. And of course, the statute provides that should we run out of that, we'd go to the Interim Finance Committee to replenish that budget account. The NSPD had an increase in the budget for the upcoming biennium because Humboldt County has opted into the services in Nevada State Public Defender's Office. Services are set to begin around July 1st, so starting next week. There's a certain amount. The budget looks weird, I think, to anybody looking at it, and I'd explain this to the legislature, because it doesn't look like we added any attorneys to the office, and that's because we didn't. There were a lot of vacant positions from the old Carson City office. Those weren't removed from the budget, so they didn't need to be added in again for Humboldt County. So those positions carried over, so you won't see like a change if you were to compare last biennium to this biennium for salaries amounts, because those have already been incorporated. What you will see is increased amounts for things like renting a building, for travel, things like that, and some substantial amounts that hopefully will at least be enough to get us started providing services in the first few months for those things in Humboldt County. We may be making some early requests for additional funding because it turns out that renting property in Humboldt County is an expensive endeavor. Finding people to do technological installations, also an expensive endeavor. So we took some of the lessons we learned in Ely, but didn't quite project as far, I think, a year ago when we were building these budgets as maybe we could have. So it's going to be some challenges, I think, but I don't think we can't manage. Pursuant to statute, the board is required to approve our budgets for the upcoming biennium. If you have any questions about the budgets, I am happy to discuss, answer any questions or discuss any issues.
We'll take action on that first, or if you want to go through all of them.
I think we should take action on that. I'm trying to see if anything else needs action. Right. So no, there is nothing else that requires action. The rest of the items are for discussion, unless you want to take some other action related to those items.
No. Okay, we'll pause here for questions by the board on the budget.
This is,
Hi,
well,
Chris.
this is Chris. It may not be for the budget part. You mentioned Humboldt. That's because, are they the only county that has asked to be serviced by us?
So White Pine County is continuing to be serviced by the State Public Defender's Office. Yeah, Humboldt's the only new county receiving services.
Okay, all right.
Well, it sounds like the budget endeavors were successful, so congratulations on that. Are there any board
I would make
questions?
a motion to adopt the budget, if that would be acceptable.
Absolutely. I have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Sure, this is Eastleigh in Tonopah. I'll second that.
Thank you, Joni. Any public comment or comment on the item before we take action? Okay, well then, all of the board members in favor of the budget, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Great, there you have it.
Great. If I could move on to item C.
Please
I will.
go.
Thank you.
Good call.
So county quarterly reports and current reimbursement status. At this point, I believe most, if not all, the Davis counties, there might be one that hasn't been paid yet. A lot of those payments seem to be stuck in transit. When we're making the request from 8518 funds, it seemed like our log showed much more in payments that have been sent out. So they might still be at ASD at this point, facilitating those transactions. A couple, we're still, obviously fourth quarter reports won't be due until next week. As soon as we get those in, we'll start processing them. Of course, we'll do it the same way we did last year, where if there are any changes that need to be made, any updates, because all the counties close their books the same time we do, we'll be also taking those in the next fiscal year, probably out of next fiscal year funds to pay reimbursements for this fiscal year, just to clean up and reconcile any differences. A huge thanks to the folks in the counties who've been working with us. I know we've been sometimes slow to respond. Me personally, been slow to respond to a lot of their inquiries and requests, and they're always really gracious dealing with me. And I really appreciate all the work that they do. I think right now the only county we don't have any quarterly reports from is Story County. And I think in large part that's because they're receiving services from the Carson City Public Defender's Office. So at some point, the Carson City Public Defender's Office requests payment from Story County, then Story County provides those payments. And it could just be that there's some communication problems there. I don't know enough about it to find out, but I'll be reaching out to everybody again as we come up to with the fourth quarter payments to make, or fourth quarter reporting, to make sure everyone's getting their reporting in, that this is kind of the first last chance to get the counties reimbursed for as much as we can get them reimbursed. And that if they don't submit anything, we won't be able to reimburse them.
Okay.
Any questions about that, or should I move on, or do you want to take them together?
You can take them together.
Sure. County annual financial reports, including fiscal year 24 expenditures and fiscal year 26 projections. We've received 14 of those, I believe, as of today, 14 counties. The people producing these, it's almost an impossible task, right? I send out like this 9-page, maybe 10-page, 10-tab Excel spreadsheet, and they actually go through and read the instructions and put the stuff in the cells. And then occasionally they'll call me and ask questions, and they've already got a really good grasp. So I'm always really impressed when they get these back to me with virtually no errors, or sometimes the error was mine in the Excel sheet itself. So again, really appreciate all the staff that work on those. The expenditures from 2024, actually are pretty close to the expenditures that we expected based on our quarterly reporting. So it's good that we have pretty close reconciliation there. Maximum projections weren't as important in this fiscal year because they're just kind of allowing us to plan for how much we might need to ask for from IFC next year. The following year, though, those annual reports are going to be really important because it'll be what we're basing our budget on for that maximum contribution reimbursement account. Every county, I think, that I've been working with for obtaining the annual reports at this point that hasn't got them in has already requested them, and we've granted an extension, or they're aware that it's due.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then item E, the county maximum contribution amounts for fiscal year 2026. Like I already mentioned, I think I released that earlier in the year. If I haven't, I'll release that shortly. The maximum contribution amounts have been calculated, and I believe are posted. I don't know if I made the packet. I'll make sure it does if it hasn't already.
Okay. Any further board questions on item number 7?
This is Chris. I don't know if this is, I'm reading the annual report, Peter.
Yes.
So four counties are not able to, looks like Churchill. Sorry. Lost my place where I was reading. Well, you go into the fact that there were 3 areas that were part of the problems for hiring. And it looks like none of them mentioned anything about housing. So is housing no longer an issue in some of the rurals?
So I'm sure that's an issue in most rural counties. I live in Douglas County where housing is still very, very expensive, especially for new purchasers. My understanding is that housing costs are high, but in speaking with interns, a lot of them just aren't even considering housing prices as an option because of those first 3 reasons. It really is, the pay disparity apparently is huge. I was literally told by one of the interns we have, I won't mention which one, he's like, yeah, no, I really like what the department, what it is, what the department does, what public defenders do, and I really like working here. I don't remember which semester it was, one of the semesters, but I've sold my soul and I'm taking a huge amount of money to work at a firm here in town. I didn't ask him exactly what the dollar value was, but he said that we weren't competitive.
Okay, so it's not necessarily, they just referenced the top 3 issues that came from the interns rather than, so I just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose sight that that's still a problem.
It is, and I still want to push forward. It was something that I started developing, kicking around at least about a year ago, was housing down payment assistance. So we can start a program for housing down payment assistance for attorneys who take positions in rural Nevada. Might be a big boon to getting people to actually relocate to those places, especially because of the limited amount of housing and the high cost of housing. And it would be a better incentive than, say, like student loan repayment, which might take a long time or there might not be sufficient support for it.
Okay, I'm glad. Yeah, keep that on our radar because I do think that that's very important. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Certainly. Okay, let's dive into the annual report then for the department, item number 8.
And I did send that out last night. Sorry for that. I was finishing up some final edits for that to go out. It's either tab 6 if you have a binder, or again, it was emailed out to everybody and posted to the website. Essentially, the format, as I indicated in the executive summary, it's a very different form than in past years. Due to limited staff, I didn't have nearly the bandwidth to make the kind of beautiful reports that we've produced in the past, which it's one of those things where you don't realize how much effort goes into these kind of things until you do it for yourself.
Yeah.
And so again, thanks to Brenda for doing a lot of work on this, on Home for providing information. I certainly shouldn't have done this on my own, even to the degree that's here. It takes a lot of research and writing. So if you have any questions about it, or I think the statute requires me to take board input regarding this, so it is an action item. If you have any questions about it, yes.
Yeah, Peter, it's Joni in Tonopah. I do have a question.
Sure.
It's apparently, well, a 15-page report, but my page 15 has a heading, annual state and county data, and nothing else. There's no data following that.
Okay, and that might have been, I think those got uploaded separately. One is a Word doc, so that you could see where you could potentially make changes. The other was uploaded as an Excel spreadsheet that was intended to be attached. And I think I don't remember if it's called workload log.
Oh, okay, so the data would be on the spreadsheet.
On the Excel spreadsheet, and there's several
Got
tabs.
it.
One for the
Okay,
state.
that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Again, if you have any questions, suggestions, if you want any other information that I can provide in the next few days, I'm happy to provide that.
Well, yeah, I'm not bashful. I'll call you, but I read it and it seems fine.
Are there any other board comments or suggestions for the annual report for the department?
I do have a question.
Sure.
So if I look at the state of Nevada, the whole
Yes.
thing.
You're talking about the state of Nevada, like tab in the data.
Yep.
Okay.
So right after where Joni was talking about
Page
annual
16.
state and county data, before we get to individual counties, we have the whole state. Well, we have the rural counties.
Yes.
What's the 87.9 under the attorney calculated equivalent? I want to make sure that I'm still on the same page with the workload study.
Yeah, so that's summing up that column above it. So that's the attorney calculated equivalent based on the reported number of cases, as applied the caseload value to that number.
But just for the Davis cases or for all rural cases, which is that?
This is for the rural counties that are in the following data section, in the following sheets.
Okay. And so.
So across the rurals, there is an equivalent need of the current number of cases. I'm using that NCSE workload study numbers, not using the recommendations for number of attorneys in that report. This is just based on the number that we have in there is that 87.9 need based on the cases reported.
All right, based on.
I feel like I'm walking in circles with this. I'm sorry if it's confusing.
No, but that number is based on the report, not based on what we said the counties should come up with at the moment.
That's correct, yeah.
So when we get to the 4 counties under item 13, it's not these numbers that we're asking them to get to. These numbers are just reflecting a perfect world, if you could, where we could meet everything that the caseload study said.
Yes, that's correct. Ideally, right, we want that number on the far right in that same row to match the number that's there.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good question.
And I will note if it's not clear, these are for calendar year 24 data, so it doesn't include the current fiscal or the current calendar year.
I just didn't want, when we got to number 13 and talked about those 4 counties, to refer back and say, oh, it's not that number, it's this new number over here, because these numbers are higher than what we said. Okay.
And it is worth mentioning, like for some of these counties, you can see their attorneys doing a great amount of work, like compared to the amount of need. So in those counties, certainly like the attorneys, and they're still like within their workload standards and committing a lot of extra time to their cases, more than we'd anticipate, at least on the workload study, right, for the standard.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions from the board? On the annual report, Chris?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Oh, sure. I saw you light up on the screen, so I thought you might want to. When I see your green box.
The dog did it.
No, you're good. Okay. Great. Well, then this is a possible action. You said the statute requires us to approve it, or
yeah, it says
accept it?
I think you could accept it without modifications or further tests. Yeah. Approve it for publication.
I'm looking for a motion.
I just have a point of question. I have a question.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh.
Were we going to
go ahead.
discuss
No
a
problem.
little bit or the contents of the annual report before we approve it, or are we going to discuss it afterwards, or when does it come up that we talk about the content?
This is your opportunity. We've been discussing
did.
the annual report. So if there are changes or things you'd like to see in it, this is a great opportunity for you to do that before we vote on it.
Okay. So I would just like to make one comment. In the section of attorney oversight, I appreciate the language and the aspirational goals and an identification of some of the challenges that we've had in the past year with staffing and review, and some of the sort of more ambiguous remedies that have been instituted. In other words, that people have been talked to or followed up, et cetera. I'm just wondering if we need to, in the report, be a little bit more specific about what protocols were in place, what triggers were in place, what follow-up with regard to any individual cases with attorneys, where that discourse might lie. Being one of the more important aspects or components of this board is to make sure, that quality care is being given to everyone who we are charged with overseeing to provide the best defenses and service possible. I just think it's a little thin as to what triggers what, and then how we react and what we should be kind of thinking about to make sure that things don't fall through cracks, or that only the highest care is being delivered through this program. So, I mean, I know that's a lot, but it's a nice section, but I don't know that it really gives a view of what we've been doing and even kind of what we should be thinking about as we move forward.
Director Hannon, you want to comment on that? Do you wanna-
Sure, yeah. Well, and I'm happy I can do, I guess, I can do it either way. Sort of, I'm happy to provide some additional information in the report, to provide some more specifics. A lot of that information you're talking about, David, is kind of in transit, right? Because we are changing some personnel. Like Tom was covering this. If you remember, Tom at the very beginning is doing oversight, and I did it briefly, and now Home is going to take up that mantle. And so things are going to change kind of by necessity. Luckily, the people that have been in the outreach advisor seats, right, have been the same. So like we have Derek Lopez here with us. David Sheik's on vacation in beautiful Alaska and somehow couldn't make it. And all the work that John Kavlik's done has been great, been fantastic, right? And we left a lot of discretion to them because of the short staffing here. So David's been acting and interacting, and so is Derek and John, like with attorneys on an individual basis, and they're making a lot of discretionary calls, especially when it comes to anything from like minor issues or personal sensitive issues, right? That we might not want to put in a full report or something. They're addressing on their own. Some of the things you do see or can see in the reports were uploaded, so you can view those individual reports that Derek and David and John have been producing and read those. And they're very granular, right? So Derek produces one for every hearing he goes to for each of the attorneys that appeared that day. He gives a lot of case information, talks about the things the attorneys are or aren't doing on that day. So going forward, right, with the full staff, we'll be able to like actually collect all of that data, synthesize it, and then better flag those kind of issues. A lot of the other things that they've been doing is identifying more systemic issues, right? So issues that might arise with the courts themselves or with some of the procedures in those counties, right? And working with them. So I can certainly include that in the report. I guess I want to identify, right, that a lot of that more detailed information you can find in the reports that we've uploaded too.
Oh yeah, and that was kind of the impetus, is that I've read quite a few of those, some which did suggest some sort of patterns, but they all dead end at one point, right? So I don't know what protocols are in place for corrective action or whatever, and it might be nice as part of this report. And again, between privacy and this granular level, which is not for public publication, public consumption, that there would be some maybe effort to categorize or discern, or at least give some sense to anyone who's reading the annual report what we are doing, what we are aware of, maybe even in general categories or in the type of remedies that have been implemented, or how many are still open, or maybe even some assessment of who has not with particular names or whatever, but like the specific types of remedies that have been implemented. That sort of thing would, I think, give someone a better sense who's reviewing these annual reports of what it is that we're doing and how we are taking it serious, or where our blind spots are for good public comment and good participation from all the attorneys who are depending on us as well. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I think we're on the same page. It's just right now it's a little, having read as many reports as I had and then seeing what was in the annual report, I just saw a little bit of a disconnect of what the people who are reviewing that annual report should be seeing.
This is Chris. Can I follow up on David's comment, Peter?
Sure.
Or do you want to answer something? Okay.
No, please.
I see what David's talking about. We basically have 3 paragraphs, but I think the lead into it said we haven't had time to go through all the reports. They did make calls apparently to contact attorneys to ensure their health and well-being are there, and that they can continue cases. I'm going to think, and that's a good point that David's making for the future. I don't know that in this annual report, now that we're staffed, and then there should be some more delineation of actions that actually happen and protocols that came about. I would just suggest that. David, would that work for you to do it for a go forward?
Yeah, I think even if we reference that, as we can sort of distill the information, that we would make that available, the formats that are appropriate, on the website for public consumption, et cetera. But maybe have a commitment to doing that in the annual report, because I think it is something very important. If other members of the board agree that type of information should be. Again, appreciating the position that we're in, I wasn't expecting this to be a detailed part, but when I read that part of the annual report, I was kind of like, and so I think it's really important that we at least commit ourselves to doing that sort of transparency, disclosure, and give people that understanding, both people looking in and people participating in the various programs, what we're doing.
Yeah,
So
I very
David,
much appreciate. Oh, go ahead.
no, that's okay, Peter. So would it make sense to maybe just asterisk the last sentence of the third paragraph and then say, in the future, there will be more robust, blah, 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 something along those lines,
Mhm.
reports.
Protocols, follow-up measures. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I can certainly do that, and that's an easy change to make. I'd also like invite you, because you have a lot of experience doing this kind of work, David. Like, if you have any recommendations for protocols we could develop, how we might be able to best set up these kind of reviews, more than happy to hear from you about them, because this is still a developing process, and it would be really helpful to get the board's input. I don't know if it's something that we want to look at as a regulation to make it too strict, but certainly your input's very valuable.
Yeah, and I think that having some manner of just a meeting with as many board members who are interested in, and the people who are doing the oversight, and the people who are reviewing the people who are doing the oversight, because I know that there are a lot of people involved in the process of making sure that the highest quality is being delivered. I'll sit and talk about what, the kind of protocols that, I think we'd all like to see. So there is certainty and there is transparency. So yeah, I'd be 100% willing to do any of that with the overseers and other staff.
Great. Okay, with that.
Okay, then I'll make a motion. I would make a motion
Chris.
to accept, that's okay, to accept the annual report with an asterisk noted at the third paragraph in the attorney oversight section that further protocols and will be made in the future annual report or something along those lines.
Good motion, thank you. Do I hear a second from the board?
I'll second that, Susan Bush.
Thank you, Susan. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay. David, you good?
Yep.
All right, great. There's a motion on the table. All of those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposition? All right, great. And then what I also heard was a commitment to sit down moving forward and help develop some of those protocols and follow-up measures. So that doesn't need to be included in the annual report, but just so it can be noted for the record. All right, well then let's move on to item number 9, the public defender status. I know you talked a little bit about Humboldt County, so.
I did, and normally I take this, but we have a state public defender here if he'd like to take this topic. I'd appreciate it. He's got more knowledge than I do, certainly.
Well, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andrew Coates, the state public defender. Primarily, my main update is on Humboldt County, of course, but since your last meeting back in February, I do want to say that White Pine County, I believe, has been fully staffed and is having complete coverage by attorneys. Moving on to Humboldt County, this has been a busy past few months for me. I've been tasked with securing office space, finding 5 attorneys, 2 legal secretaries, 2 investigators, and we start our services July 1st. I will say that I have secured office space. We're looking at a lease for our ideal location, which is also kind of our only location given the status of office space in Winnemucca. There's not much available, especially not too much that's appropriate for a law office, so to speak, with proper privacy for clients, etc. But the building that we are going to be moving forward with is ideal and is also quite impressive. So I'm happy to say we have that. I have 2 legal secretaries on board, both of them with local ties to the community. They're set to be onboarded July 1st, as all the staff is actually. 2 investigators I've secured and hired, and they are very seasoned individuals who will be coming in with a lot of experience. One of them is very strong local ties to Winnemucca. The biggest challenge has been recruiting attorneys because of pay, because of mostly location and housing that has been difficult. but I am pleased to say we are looking to move forward with the current contracted law firm, Mansfield Mayo, who will be keeping all of their existing cases. So it won't be, there will be a smooth transition and consistency for the defendants. So people aren't suddenly having, their attorney they're used to working with, just gone and then having to work completely with a new attorney. So we're going to have some consistency there. I'm pleased to say. I'm on track to securing a supervising chief deputy attorney to be the lead attorney, run the office, be my main point of contact, but also supervise any other attorneys. I'm working on salary negotiations to a certain degree. I'm a little bit limited in my options for a second chief deputy who is also very experienced, is local, would be locally based. So working with her and trying to finalize that this week. And I have a very potential deputy public defender who is not as experienced as the two chiefs, but they'll be able to kind of take on the misdemeanor cases so that the two chiefs can focus on the B's and the A's, etc. Anything else? I've traveled to Winnemucca. I've met with the Justice of the Peace, district court judge, various court staff to kind of see how scheduling works so that we are coming in, hitting the ground running. I've also met with the district attorney as well as chief deputy to kind of see about coordinating schedules so that court cases move smoothly. I will also say that we're coming in able to use sort of the existing previous public defender space for office supplies, et cetera, and meeting with clients while our building is being built out for IT and office supplies. And the county is also providing a transition staff member who is actually coming out of their budget, but is currently the chief secretary to the previous public defender. So she wants to stay at the county and they're finding another position for her. But in the meantime, she will be able to help us with the transition. And that's what I have.
Great.
Great, thank you.
Does anyone on the board have any questions for Mr. Coates?
I do. This is Chris. Welcome aboard. And what is our plan for budget next year? Because it constantly is a salary issue. And as a board, we need to make sure that we're vocalizing that as loudly as we can. Then as far as finding attorneys, do we work with the tribal council at all to see if they ever have any folks that have graduated and want to come back or anything along those lines to just see if there's interns or folks that we can kind of groom?
Well, the first question is probably better for Peter. I'll just say we would want more money for salaries. The second one, that's a very good idea. We have not pursued that. I'm trying an all of the above approach for recruitment. And even if we do secure 5 out of the 5 attorneys, I will maintain recruitment efforts so that we have a bench and that we're not, scrambling in case something doesn't work out with one of the attorneys. So that's a fantastic idea, and I thank you for that, and I will be following up on that.
Okay, thank you.
And I can respond briefly for the budget. Like I was told during this legislative session, we did attempt to get stipends through a bill that GFO helped us put through. It was like in no uncertain terms were we told no, we could not pay stipends to this particular group of state employees, that they would handle it on the pay bill. So of course we're going to keep making that ask because it's so central, and we're going to try and come up with some other creative ways to incentivize people taking these positions. I have a question sitting with our DAG about some funds that we have in our account that did not have any authority attached to them, like was in 518 for the last session. So I don't know what my authority is to spend those and whether I might be able to incentivize people to take those positions based on those funds. I certainly can't change salaries, but there may be a way to fund these through some stipend at least.
Signing bonus or some sort of, right?
Yeah, I can't phrase it that way. It's very, yeah.
There's concept is,
and as much as I can squeak by without getting in too much trouble for it, or without GFO or somebody who has a better eye on it than I certainly do, right? I guess I'm not a fiscal guy. It turns out I actually am a lawyer. I just play a fiscal guy 5 days a week now. Yeah. But yeah, as many creative ways that we can come up with to incentivize people, whether that's through money or through something else, remote work or limited commutes, things like that. We're going to be trying to get people into the offices.
Peter,
child. There could be,
I know you've
depending
told
on-
us before But what's the salary range we have now?
It's the same as it was last biennium. They didn't,
But I
or
don't
last
remember
fiscal
what
year.
that
Sure, yeah.
was.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. It caps at, I think, 130,000
Well,
for a base deputy public defender.
I think 135 or 136,
Oh, that's
depending on first contribution, of course. For the chief deputies, I believe it's at 151,000.
Wow, we're like 100 grand under.
Well, and once you consider the PERS contribution
Yeah.
portion of that 14% getting cut off the top, it's significantly lower than even the next public defender office in the state.
Susan, what are we at Clark County these days?
A lot. Oh, sorry, that was Chris.
Yeah, don't ask me that, please. Please.
More than when we were there, Jeff.
I think it's publicly available information.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the PDs, but I know it went up high. It's pretty high.
Okay, that's fine. I know even when I left, it was already well above these numbers. And so I assume it's gone up in the last couple of years, so.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, we're still below Washoe's top, though.
Ouch.
Ouch.
Go ahead. Okay. All right, I'm gonna move us right along. Any other questions for our state public defender?
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, that was just for discussion, so we'll move on to the Davis litigation update.
I don't know if the monitor's here. I don't see Professor Hanan
I didn't see.
on the screen. Yeah, if you could. If not, there's not a lot of an update to give at this moment. Essentially, right, we're in non-compliance with the consent judgment since November. We didn't hit the workload requirements. So that's a work in progress as of right now. As you can read in the last monitor's report, and she issued like a statement, which is kind of like a reiteration really of her 15th report, indicating, right, those independence issues she brought up, which are hopefully resolved with SB 407. And then the second, of course, is meeting the workload standards going forward. So I think we're anticipating something has to happen, right, in the next several months. And we're anticipating the results of what that something is, I think, pretty shortly.
Great.
If anyone has any questions about the monitor's last report or that last statement, I'm happy to answer them to the extent I can.
Any questions from the board? All right. Seeing none, that's a non-action item. We'll move on to item number 11, which is the oversight update. And it looks like we got some of our advisors here, right?
Yes, we have Mr. Lopez here. I think Mr. Cadlick's here by video.
Yep.
I just wanted to indicate, I don't know, it's for possible action off the top of my head. I'll
We can accept the
Oops.
report.
So essentially, I think the oversight update is we've received, when I actually did the numbers, we received over 750 reports in just between July 1 of 2024 and present. So there's like I said, a mountain of data in the report to sift through. It's a huge amount of information. I certainly didn't expect that much when I went back to look at this. I expected maybe a few hundred, 700, I think it's 57 reports or something like that. It was a huge amount of information to sift through. Like the fact that David went through that is mind-boggling to me because he must have spent a significant amount of time doing that. I just want to say that again, thanks to our outreach advisors. If you have any information, since I have you here, that you want to pass on board, if I could pass it to them for anything.
Yes. Start in the room.
Any assistance, David, or from anybody in terms of what protocols or what I could be looking for more specific than what I'm doing would be awesome. And that we have continuity between the three of us, I think would be awesome too, in terms of what we're looking for in reporting. In terms of some changes that are coming up, and Brian Filter's here from Douglas County, but we've got some changes in our contract attorneys in Douglas County, creating a county position to be the oversight of their indigent defense attorneys, and something that they were doing with a contract attorney before, and now it's an in-house position, and I think that's going to be a great positive change. Elko's public defender's leaving July 3rd, I think is his last day, and normally you stay till the 5th, so you get that holiday, but I think his new job, he starts that Monday, but he's leaving, and I'm not sure how that's going to affect the office. So chief deputy is the interim, or going to be the interim public defender. And I don't know if she knows yet, but I don't know if she wants to be the public defender or if she'll just be the interim until a new public defender is selected. But from everything I could tell, the public defender who's leaving was well-liked, well-respected, was really doing a good job for his clients and for that office. So anytime you see somebody doing a good job leaving, it's not an exciting thing.
Yeah.
So we've got that change. Obviously, the change in Humboldt, I think, is going to be very positive, but still up in the air. We have to wait and see how that transitions. With Lander County and Pershing County, the workloads are comparatively small. Their courts don't meet that often. They've got 2 new JPs, one in Lander and one in Pershing. Both of them appear to me to be very intelligent, want to do a good job, and are receptive to talking to other JPs, to have forums they didn't have in the past, to make sure rights are protected and things of that nature. So I'm pleased with what I've seen so far with the new JPs. There's also a new JP in Carlin. And I think also she's doing her best to make sure that she's going to be doing a good job. I did see one hiccup in one of the hearings there, and they were able to fix it afterwards. But that's just from not having the experience. And it was easy to see how it happened. And just as a quick scenario, it was a client who had already pled guilty to 2 charges, 2 different cases, was being sentenced for those 2. There was a new complaint. They had reached a global record resolution that involved him pleading to that 3rd case, and somehow in the course of it, the judge never actually took the plea. So they brought that person back and fixed it on the following week. But just being new. Had it been the only case, I don't think it would have happened because she was very thorough with each of the other cases. So there's transition. But on the whole, I guess one of the other things is Pershing County had a contract conflict attorney, and that person is not renewing their contract. So I don't know who will be found to replace that person. And that person is the contract public defender for Lander. And they're keeping their contract with Lander. So I'm not sure exactly what it was that caused him to give up the Pershing County one, whether it's the distance in travel or some other issue, I don't know. But that's just in a nutshell where we're at.
Great, thank you.
This is Chris. I have a question, if I might.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for that report. So 750 pieces came into you, Peter, to your office. So I would suggest streamlining that as well as the protocols. And maybe David, I appreciate you wanting to help with that. Do we offer training for new JPs?
So we don't. The administrative office of the courts does. I think they're actually in training this week right now, getting both new training and continuing training. But yeah, I think almost every new JP, whether elected or appointed, has to go through at least a brief course with the Judicial College up in Reno. And they also get the additional training from the administrative office of the courts. So
I was just thinking more out loud. So if you had a new attorney and you're out there doing a training, could the JPs ask to sit in if it's something they're interested in, or would we prohibit that?
we haven't reached out to the JPs. I'll put it this way. We haven't reached out to the JPs in the past and invited them. Certainly if there's a topic that we think they would get something useful out of, we wouldn't prohibit them from attending some of our trainings. Of course, there's always like a lot of the judges see training that's either provided for prosecutors or defense attorneys as something they don't want to attend, to be seen as having a bias against either side. But we have also hoping to work more with AOC to see if we might involve ourselves in some of the training they provide or provide some ideas for training for JPs.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Just to add in, yeah, Chris, they usually don't go to attorney trainings at all. In fact, I can't recall one. But I personally have been asked by the Supreme Court to do very focused trainings for judges. and that was independent of the Judicial College. So I think the last one I did on application of the gambling diversion statute 458A had about 40 or 50 judges in attendance, and Supreme Court encouraged that. So we could ask the Supreme Court to put something up where we could present something with regard to, the topics of interest.
Thank you.
All right. Do any of the other outreach advisors have any updates, reports, things you want to add, Mr. Cadlick? No.
Okay.
Okay.
We have CLE compliance reporting. If you'll remember last time, back in February, we did talk about the CLE compliance that we were enforcing that this year. Brenda is probably best suited to give you an update as to how many attorneys remain out of compliance. There were a bunch that were out of compliance. I think almost everyone is back in compliance, but if that's not right, she can tell me that's not right.
You're correct, Peter. Thank you. There are about a dozen attorneys who did not come into compliance, and so were marked inactive pursuant to the board's direction in February. And the efforts to really encourage the attorneys to come into compliance resulted in about another half dozen or so who thought to tell us, oh, I've become a judge pro tem, or I'm no longer doing defense work, or I've retired, and so they were removed from our list as well. So in all, we lost probably about 20 attorneys from our list, but we also gained quite a few attorneys in the process. I'm not quite sure how. And perhaps that's unrelated. But yeah, most of them did come into compliance.
Yeah, I think it's a useful tool for us too to see, every year who has actually taken some other employment, because they don't always inform us when that happens. So I think it's something continuing to be useful in the future.
Guys.
Yeah.
Brenda, did they, folks that didn't take the CLE and we moved them to inactive, we still allowed them to continue all cases that had been previously appointed. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. And most of the folks that didn't come into compliance have no current cases anyway. They really hadn't been practicing much. So I suspect that they sort of did a soft shutdown of their business and probably never saw my emails, even though there were a lot of them. But yes, the few that did have existing cases, we allowed them to keep them.
Okay.
And then Peter, if I might, Madam Chair, in the supplemental backup information you sent out to us, there's a letter there from Shiro and Rogers.
Scro.
Is that where is Scro? Sorry, I've always said that wrongly. Where with a name like mine, you'd think I'd know. What is that? Where is that on the agenda? Or I didn't see it noted. Or is that something that you're talking about now?
Yeah. No, thanks, Chris.
What is it they're appealing? Are they appealing?
So they're appealing. They reapplied for a determination of their qualifications, and they're going to be appealing that it couldn't be added to the agenda because the agenda had to be posted and finalized by Monday at 9 a.m. This came in, I think it was actually Wednesday, just yesterday. Yeah, or the evening before, something like that. So it wasn't timely to be agendized here. I would recommend discussing the setting of either a hearing or a meeting to discuss that appeal during section 15, discussing upcoming meetings. It's kind of up to you all whether you want to either set a special meeting or have it at the next regular board meeting, whether that's one of the dates listed in the agenda or some other date you determine. Does that sound about right, Todd? Since we have our DAG here.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that's correct. That's really the only thing we can do with it at this point because it was received so late is a discussion over when the board wants to hear the appeal on that.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if while we are waiting to hear the appeal, because the appeal really is to be able to be classified to take the A's as opposed to the classification that was granted. Could we make a recommendation, however, to Brenda that they allow her to continue the one case where they've already had it and the defendant actually wants to keep her even though she's not qualified? Is that allowed or not allowed?
Can I punt this to the DAG since he's, yeah, that's why he gets paid the medium bucks.
It wouldn't be allowed at this meeting because it's not agendized for that.
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah, no action can come from that beyond scheduling, and technically that's not even a voted on matter. It'd just be a discussion, and then ultimately it's the decision of the chair whether to have that scheduled for the next scheduled board meeting or to schedule a special meeting earlier than that in the interim.
And I'll improperly note that we have been continuing to communicate with the appellant regarding the issue raised.
Okay.
So just to be clear, the appeal is the matter that would have to be heard by the board.
Right.
Okay. All right, well, we'll consider that was part of maybe the compliance reporting on item
Sure.
B. It's slated for possible action. I don't think we need to do any action on an update unless Todd tells us differently. We can move on. Okay. Great, let's go to item number 12, which is the training and pipeline update.
Great. So there's a LASSO update in the annual report that we kind of talk about. The numbers are much higher than they were the first year of LASSO. We're really proud of this program growing, seeing a lot more students in different years of their law school and professional careers. As we indicated, one of the students, there's actually one student who took a job in Carson City as part of the original stipend program for externs or interns in rural county. And there's one new grad who's accepted a position also in Carson City that was a LASSO recipient. So hopefully we can continue that success, keep getting students to understand that there are a lot of reasons to move to rural Nevada. It's great places to live, great communities to work in. I certainly have enjoyed working in rural Nevada in almost the entirety of my career. So I think just having that opportunity for them to get out there and experience it for themselves is such it's great that we're able to offer that opportunity, and hopefully we'll continue to support our pipeline efforts to get people to take these positions in rural counties. And honestly, like not just as public defenders, but also as prosecutors or civil attorneys, because we really do need more attorneys in these places generally. For the annual conference, again, well, we had a very large turnout. We held it in Reno this year. Very well attended. We brought in 5 trainers from out of the state to provide training. We had 7 in-state trainers. It was very well reviewed. We changed the schedule a little bit this year, so we had over the course of 3 days instead of 2 days. That worked a lot better for people to be able to flex which days they could attend and couldn't. They're able to better modify their schedules to attend accordingly. We also had a couple of social events so that the attorneys can get to know each other and again build those networks so that they can reach out to other attorneys across the state and help develop their practice, answer questions, feel more comfortable, shopping their case issues and things like that. So we think it was a unmitigated success from our perspective, and certainly the reviews that we've seen kind of bear that out. So again, really proud of that, and thanks Brenda for all of her hard work in last year setting that up. It really, I think, paid off well this year. And thanks to our partners at MPHF who did a lot of that coordinating for that, getting the facility set up and doing the room block kind of things.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks. Virtual training. Do you want to address virtual training and summer externs, Brenda?
Sure, Peter, I can do that.
Thanks.
Our virtual training, we've had, I think 3 classes so far this year, including an updated juvenile primer. We did get slowed down our virtual training because we lost our Zoom account for a few months. We finally got that back. Thank you, HOMA. So now we're able to pick back up again. I do have 2 that I'll be scheduling for next month, and we'll try and round out the year, maybe make up some of the lost time that we had these past couple months. And then our summer externs, we do have 2 summer externs from Boyd Law School. They are providing research support for the department on various administrative issues, and we are expecting good work from them. So we're thankful to have them. Is there anything you want me to add, Peter?
No, I just say that Dawn always sends us fantastic people to extern with the department. I don't know if we're just a department that she tells, I don't know if it's students she likes or students that are excellent or whatever, but we don't get bad crops of students from maybe it's just Boyd has such an excellent law school. They're all fantastic, but they've been really great to work with. And the entire time I've been here, they've been really phenomenal, and they're great again this summer so far. So.
And as a Boyd grad, I did not pay you to say that.
That's awesome. All right. That was just for discussion. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, we'll move on to the workload compliance update. This one is for action potential.
Potential, yes. So this is the compliance update. This is going to be like a standing item again on the agenda since we've added a standing item a few meetings ago. I talked about Douglas County, but we have Brian Filter, who's now the Director of Indigent Defense Services in Douglas County. I won't leave it to him to explain everything right now. My current understanding is they don't have the requisite 8.8 attorneys that the NCSE study recommended, which are adopted by this board and required. They are changing the system substantially. As I mentioned, Brian's a director. That's a very new way of thinking about public defense rather than having a true public defender's office or having just contractors in the county. This is kind of like a third way of doing that. So we're paying a lot of attention. It seems like a very interesting model. It's something that we might further develop in other areas or recommend to other areas if it's working well there. There are certainly some counties I have in mind that might be able to employ something similar to this, provided things are going well. If you have anything, I don't know if I can defer to Brian's, but I'd like to.
If I could, I would like to speak.
Yes, please do.
So I am Brian Filter. In first part of May, I became the director of a newly formed Department of Indigent Defense in Douglas County. Jennifer Davidson, the county manager, when she kind of recruited me for that, I'm not gonna look at even right now. Anyway, she presented to me with the idea and determination to make Douglas County's Indigent Defense Program the best rural defense program in the state. And I believe, and she's in my 2 months now of doing it, she's backing it up. You know, I know we're deficient in some areas. I'd argue that we're not quite as deficient as maybe it's thought by the pure numbers. So, you know, my background prior to undertaking that in May, I was an indigent defender in Douglas County for 7 years. So I know the workloads, I know the courts, I know the processes. It's going to be an incremental thing. We're not going to be able to make everything happen today, or probably not even the first year, but we're working towards it. One of those efforts is we've heretofore had 5 annual contracts. We're adding a 6th, gotten approval and budgeting to do that. Probably not going to bring that 6th online till the beginning of Q2 in October, both for budgetary reasons and for finding somebody. And I'll just tell you, go back to something that was raised earlier, the recruitment of attorneys to come, and particularly as Peter had mentioned earlier, Douglas County is extremely expensive to live in, to find housing. And to have someone that we only want to contract with on an annual contract basis with attorneys that are qualified for the full spectrum of cases, and it's very difficult to do. We're actively recruiting them, we're working towards it. Got a couple of irons in the fire, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to accomplish that by the 1st of October. But I'd also point out that in addition to the 5 and soon to be 6 contract attorneys, full contract attorneys, we have about a dozen right now. We're trying to increase to 15 hourly attorneys. And it's not just conflicts. We regularly assign out cases to attorneys outside of the 5, soon to be 6 contracts. The last year, maybe more than that, there's actually, the way we run it in our system is we have a rotation for the different types of cases, and it's a 6 attorney, even though we've only had 5, it's a 6 attorney rotation, because we appoint basically every 6 case of that phantom, if you will, attorney, which is an hourly attorney that we assign the cases to. Another issue, I guess, is that, or point is that we do contract separately for attorneys to handle the capital cases, so those go out of the contracts. Heretofore, I know it's been an issue with indigent defense that the contracts before this year included 432B child welfare cases. We've taken that out, which has further reduced the burden on the contract attorneys. That's a separate contract now, not in any way linked to the indigent defense contract. We are going to opt in, or planning to opt in to the state public defender to do our capital and appeals. That's going to take some time, obviously, but we are going to opt into that, which will also help lighten the load. You know, right now, I really feel like we're making some strides. I've been very pleased with how I've been received. They've given me a great deal of independence to run this department. The decision-making processes and those kind of things are a great deal of independence, but where I need it, whenever I need it, when it comes to money, they've been very supportive. And I was not involved in the budgeting this year. That was done before I came on. Not approved yet, but the budgeting process had taken place before I joined the county. But next year, we're going to work to get further funding to continue to build towards meeting these goals. And we're really dedicated to it. I'll go back to what Jennifer said. It's not just her goal, but it's mine. And I believe we can achieve making this Douglas County what can be a model for the rest of the rules in the state.
That's awesome. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
All right, I'll move on to Nye County. Nye County's had some significant contract changes from just last month. As you recall, the requirement under the NCSC workload study is 12 attorneys. They'd hired 3 additional attorneys on contracts, I think it was back in February or March. So they had a total of 9 at that time. Since then, they've recontracted or attempted to recontract it with those attorneys or any other attorneys who might apply. My understanding is that they have sort of set aside funding to hire 12 contracts. Apparently they don't have a lot of applicants. The rate was increased from 175,000 a year to 200,000 a year. The terms were changed from 1 year to 2 year terms. They're hoping, I think, to increase longevity, right, to help incentivize more attorneys to apply for these contracts. Some of the contractors just didn't want to renew for various reasons. One took a contract in a different county. One left and didn't continue her contract, but she was willing to keep her caseload, so it'll help kind of facilitate those cases, and I think still promotes that vertical representation that we're pushing towards, right? So we're going to be on an hourly basis going forward. They did manage to retain 6 of those contractors going forward, and they added, I think they retained 5 of those and added 2 more contractors for a total of 7 contractors going forward. So it's a decrease from 9 to 7. We're going to be balancing that to some degree on our end of how we're selecting counsel. We do manage the selection of counsel in Nye County. So we're going to be reaching outside of that rotation to ensure the workloads for the existing contractors and the new contractors don't greatly exceed what should be reasonable under the workload study. So it does give time to Nye County. You've had some discussions. It sounded like they might be understanding of attempting to retain more contractors. But certainly they need to if they want to get to the point where we're in compliance with Davis. For Lyon County, there was a restructuring of some of the conflict counsel, and there was an increase in the number of attorneys provided under the contract. Lyon County's done interestingly where they sort of say that, hey, firm, you're going to provide us with X number of full-time attorneys, and then we're going to pay you X. So now they have 3 contracts with Mario Walther and Cale Brock, and with Mansfield Mayo. They have a different number depending on the attorney. I can't remember the exact numbers on the top of my head. It doesn't come up to the number they need, which I think again is about 12. They're a few short, but they have been making strides to increase those. They are changing the numbers. I should have uploaded them. I just had the updated contract sent over to me a couple weeks ago by by Josh Floyd, the controller. I think he's the controller. So they are, again, making changes to improve the system, to add contractors, or to at least allow for these firms to hire more attorneys or bring other work in to then execute on those contracts to make sure they're meeting that coverage. Again, as we move forward with them, they've been pretty good since we've made better relationships. Of course, budgeting season's always hard for the county. So when I'm trying to work with them between February and May, they're all busy doing very different things. And then I also had the legislative session. So going forward though, it seems like we have better communications than we had before. They're working very well with us to communicate what's going on. So I'm anticipating that going forward, they're going to be much more responsive. We'll be able to provide better information to the board, to the monitor, and hopefully we'll see continued improvements towards that goal of compliance. Churchill County has added positions, is my understanding. Right now they have Jacob Summer, the public defender. They hired somebody to be a deputy. The alternate public defender is staff. That's Noel. I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. Is staffed. They've considered converting some of the positions they have. They've been hiring for a while now. It's been posted on their website. They did kind of increase the pay bands that were visible on the website. It was kind of occluded, where it looked like, oh, the starting pay is really low, but it turns out that, because the county pay band has a series of steps and it could max out a lot higher, that sometimes that wasn't being disclosed until the interview of applicants. So they adjusted those postings to reflect a more true indication of what the salary ranges were. And it seems like they're getting more applicants. As I was going to mention, that they had at least one position that they were considering converting to a social worker potentially because they have the salary there. I told them, of course, like, hire the people that are going to help the people, and we'll see what kind of compensation that does to the attorney workload in the county, right? If the social workers significantly saving the other public defenders huge amount of time, they can provide better service directly to their clients in the legal field and not have to do that kind of social work task, which is a large part of this work. It might result in significant savings. Savings maybe not be the right word, better application of their time to their clients' legal needs, such that it's a little more broadly spread out. Of course, it's not the same as having another attorney in the office to provide the attorney representation, but if they're keeping good data on that, I indicate that would be very helpful in us determining, especially if we revisit, the workload studies in the future, like we're required to do. That would be very useful information to have to kind of project how that helps and how counties might be able to better predict if it's something they want to include in their systems.
Great.
They are still short, though. I will mention they have a couple of contractors to them. I have no idea why this is escaping my brain right now, everybody. I apologize. But they are still, I think, 3 attorneys short. It might be 4 attorneys short in Churchill County.
Good. All right. Well, thank you for being open to different types of case management. Helps a ton. I know our attorneys spend a good deal of time linking people to resources, and you're not attorneying, so right. Yeah. Great. Okay. Any questions on item 13, the workload compliance update? Since this is an update and the other one has it, 2 don't, I'm not gonna, unless somebody wants to move it for possible action, I think we can move on. Let's go to item 14, county request regarding the NCSC workload study.
Sure, I just wanted to add this to the agenda. Several of the counties have indicated that the underpinning data for the workload studies resulted in some kind of the incorrect allocations for required attorneys. I don't know exactly what data was relied on. I think at some point Marcy might have sent out the data sheet that had the initial data set that they relied on for generating the required number of attorneys. I just wanted to bring this up, like I said, because more than one county has brought this to our attention. We will be revisiting the NCSC workload study every, I think it's 5 years. It was recommended anyways. So that's something we want to just kind of have on the radar is, one, it will be revisited at some point, regardless of the kind of the Davis implications of it, right? Like the workload is kind of guidelines for the future, but certainly for now, like for the Davis litigation, right? This board has already adopted the workload study, and that's what we're using as our basis for compliance. So I guess I want to raise it in case any of the board members or any members of the public or the counties want to have those discussions about those underpinnings, where they come from, to kind of like open up that forum to make sure that they're being heard about that.
All right, thank you.
And I'm happy to answer any questions that somebody might have about it.
Peter, Susan.
Yes.
Our workload standards are lower than the national RAND study, correct?
So yes, like the hour allocations per types of case, yes, they are. If we were to apply the RAND study numbers, we would need, I think, triple the number of attorneys implicated in the study that was performed for Nevada.
Thanks, Susan. Anybody else have any questions or comments on the workload study and the baseline data that you believe was sent out or might have been? Okay. Thank you. Well, then let's move on to talk about our upcoming meetings and potential, well, I don't know if we can do potential agenda items, but we mentioned we might want to figure out when to discuss the appeal that's included in the packet that was sent out last night. So I'll let you walk us through what you're thinking, and
sure.
Like
yeah, if we can, I guess, start with the upcoming meetings. These are just kind of picked out of a hat at roughly the same time we had for the last couple of years. So those dates are September 25th, 2025. All the times are at 1 p.m. We have virtual meetings posted for everything except for the last meeting, that summer meeting, like today's meeting.
Yep.
Second's at December 4th, 2025. The third would be at February 5th, 2026. And that fourth, that would be in person, with location to be determined, I still like going out to a different rural county to have the board experience that particular county. And hopefully we'll be able to do that then next June, on June 11th of 2026. Obviously, those dates are flexible at the board's discretion. I think at the chair's discretion to some degree. It's up to the chair and the board as to whether they might want to set a special meeting for that appeal issue that was raised in that letter that I attached and sent out.
Do we have a sense for the urgency of the appeal, given that the case that I think it's Miss Martinez has that she can't continue to work on? Do we need?
Sure. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Without getting into details, like Peter mentioned, that we're monitoring it. We're not of any understanding that there's the same kind of urgency related to the case. Brenda and I last month we were actually invited by the court in that case to attend a hearing about kind of the pending issues. We were invited to submit an amicus brief. We did. So I mean so we're on on track with everything that might be pending. We're not aware of anything specific. The main thing I would say is that it's not really at the posture that it might seem to be. That this was private counsel. The case hasn't gone back to the public defender for any conflict. Sort of underlying county's contract.
Sure.
So or under their plan. So we're just working on education and discussion about how this should wind its way to obviously protect the rights of the individual that that she's trying to advocate for. So we're not of the opinion there's anything urgent, but obviously she may disagree.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the appellant might disagree about the urgency. I think what it comes down to is I think we have a different understanding of both the procedure and the nature of the case and how she should be addressing it. From our perspective, it's something that could be resolved without an appeal to change her qualification level. She sees it as needs the increased qualification level to continue the case. So with that, I won't say from our perspective, it's not an urgent situation. But from hers, it may be. I think certainly, of course, she's entitled, right, to have the appeal on her qualification level because of our determination. Well,
without debating the merits of her level and any of that, since we're certainly not agendized for that, my recommendation would be that we can't vote on that. We can vote on the meeting date, but that we allow you to continue to work with her to see if there's a change in level of, without needing to do the appeal to which she can represent. And then if not, we could schedule, if needed, the appeal on the next board meeting, which is September 25th. I'm not inclined to call a special meeting unless members of the board feel differently, and I'm open to that discussion.
This is Chris. I think since the urgency may not be there, and as long as staff is tracking it, if something changes, then I would say they contact you as chair and you can always decide to call a special meeting. But I think the 25th makes good sense.
Great.
And can I just clarify something?
Sure.
If the private attorney withdrew, then the attorney that has a contract for Lyon County then would be appointed?
So according to the plan, generally, right. So what we need to, from my position, hypothetically, right, if an attorney were to need to withdraw from a district court case after being retained, that attorney would need to move to withdraw, have an order granted by the district court. The district court would then need to make a finding and determination of indigency for that client so that it gets referred either to the county plans for public indigent defense or to our department. In a case where retained counsel would like to continue on, I think that's preferable to us, right, to retain that vertical representation. So we would make an exception to the county plan instead of sending it to a different attorney in the contract to continue on with the same attorney.
Okay. So, Susan, you good?
Yeah, I'll call Peter on it separately.
Sure.
Yeah,
there was just some issues we had with that type of procedure going on in Clark County. So that's we handle it differently. That's all.
Well, I think the scrutiny, I think that's sort of what I would expect to happen is the judge is exercising some scrutiny or some discretion in that taking that withdrawal motion, right? Because the judge should be making a determination regarding whether that withdrawal is appropriate in the first instance before it ever comes back to us.
Yeah, I'm fine with moving it until September. I just want to make sure that if the private attorney withdrew, they weren't qualified to take it, that there was an attorney there to handle the case, and it is.
Yeah, and there would be.
Great. Okay, so unless board members have any significant issues with the 4 dates that are provided. What is Joni, is that you?
I just cleared my throat. I'm good.
Sorry. Yeah, I have terrible hearing, so
Sorry.
I'm surprised I can hear you guys, but, okay, then it looks like it's for possible action. We can move to adopt these meeting dates, so at least we can get them publicly available so folks can plan accordingly. And then if anything changes, we can certainly bring it up in September or do an email. So do I have any comments, questions, or a motion on the 4 meeting dates that are proposed on the agenda?
That's Chris. I'll make a motion to accept the 4 dates. Oh, sorry, Joni, go ahead.
No, I'll second your motion.
Okay.
Great. Do we have any comment on the motion?
There's a question in the chat saying, would someone be kind enough to share the Nevada Supreme Court case number for me, please? I guess if that's a question about what we were talking about with, setting that discussion, it's a case of Lyon County.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a.
We'll get staff to maybe send an email to, it looks like Randolph. I can't read that far.
Mr. Fiedler.
Fiedler. Okay, great. Thank you. We've got a motion on the floor and a second. If there's no more discussion, we'll make a vote to adopt the upcoming meetings. All those board members in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposition? Great. All right, Mr. Director Handy, you have your meeting set for the next year, which is fun. We'll work on a location. Sounds like as we get a little closer.
Yes.
That moves us into final public comment. Is there anyone online that wants to talk to any matter that's within the jurisdiction of this public body?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Easley.
Yes. I'm not a member of the public. I'm a member of the board. So I don't know if this is appropriate during this period, but there's nowhere on the agenda for board members to offer comments. So I just wanted to bring to the attention of the board that the county made the decision to shut down the jail in Tonopah, which now means that anyone who is arrested in Nye County must be transported from wherever they are. And keep in mind that Nye County is 18,000 square miles in size. They are now being transported down to the jail in Pahrump, which is the only facility now remaining open in Tonopah. And I have anticipated some big problems, particularly with indigent defendants. And this is a bad way to put it, but I haven't been disappointed. I heard from one of the district court judges recently that the transports are frequently late and that she always questions the inmate as to whether or not they have access to food and water, and most of the time they don't. I was also contacted by an indigent client here in Tonopah. It's a young man. I try to help whenever he needs it. And he was arrested on 2 separate occasions for FTAs. And when they released him, the transport brought him back to Tonopah with none of his personal belongings. He didn't have a key to his home. He didn't have his food stamp card. He didn't have his clothing. So that night when he came back, he was sleeping on the street because he couldn't get into his apartment. He was able to secure a key from the manager the following day, but it took several days before his personal belongings made it back up here to Tonopah. And I subsequently spoke to some, I'll just say people within the system, because you know how this goes. Everybody's afraid to talk because they're concerned that it would result in disciplinary action for repeating things that go on. But I was told that this happens repeatedly with folks who are arrested up here or anywhere up here, and they are transported down to Pahrump, and nearly every time they are sent back with no personal belongings. So
Wow.
I talked to Peter about this, and I know that we are concerned with issues involving defense. But as I told Peter, I look at this holistically, and if these indigent clients are being treated in this manner, I just believe it's something that the board needs to be aware of. And I did reach out to David Sheik just to let him know he's been spending a lot of time in Nye County, but I think he's on vacation out of the country for a couple of months. But I did want to bring it to the board's attention.
Thanks, Joni. We'll make a note of that. And I'm sure Peter, if we've got anything we can offer, we can be in touch.
Yeah.
Unless you want to agendize it in the future, we can talk about it.
Are there protocols any place that with regard to when someone's arrested and what stays with them and what doesn't?
I would assume that when they are brought into the jail and they have to put on their jail clothes, that they have a bag or a bin or something with their name on it that contains all of their personal possessions. This young man, he did get all of his things back. He got everything back, but it was several days before that happened.
Okay.
Wow.
Thanks, Joni.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll continue
Thank
to
you.
monitor this situation. Is there anyone else with
Oh,
any?
you know I will.
Yes, we have no doubt. Is there anyone else with public comment? All right.
Any hands raised?
I'll look if there's any hand raised.
Oh, thank you. We're gonna check to see if there's any hands raised. Give us a minute, please. Okay.
Any public comment in the room?
Any public comment in the room? No. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending. It's 2:38, and we are adjourned.
Very efficient.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good job.
Fantastic
Thank you.
share.
Thank you. How many meetings have I been to? 650
Thanks for allowing me to be here, Steve. I appreciate it.
What's that?
Thanks for allowing me to be here.
Oh, of course. I'm
Yeah.
sorry it took so long to get to you, but we appreciate being here.
Yeah.